Yes, a highlight of the show every Saturday afternoon. Let's, Connor Watson.
Connor Watson, yeah, because we spoke about Connor Watson last week, I think it was, on this show, and the understanding was the Roosters had come in for Connor Watson. Well, that subsequently was confirmed by Roosters coach Trent Robinson during the week that he's been speaking to Connor Watson, and there's a chance Connor Watson may return to the Roosters. It's my understanding both clubs were expecting a decision by now. It hasn't come yet. I think Connor's generally wrestling with what he's going to do, and he's now got a game tomorrow to concentrate on. So I think a decision's imminent there. It sounds like there's some other clubs in the mix, but it's basically come down to Newcastle or the Roosters. And obviously he's got close ties in Newcastle, lives with Kalen Ponga, very close to Kalen Ponga. But it's ultimately down to those two clubs by the sounds of it, and I would expect a decision. It could come today, the decision by Connor Watson. So the expectation was we would have it by now. It hasn't arrived yet, but it's imminent, and I think at the moment it's too close to call.
Okay.
He made his first grade debut with the Roosters, didn't he?
He did, yeah, and he's very close to Trent Robinson. He's maintained contact with Trent Robinson. Robbo spoke about that this week. But as I said, he's got really close ties in Newcastle, does a lot of work in the community up there. He and Kalen Ponga have got all sorts of side gigs going. They've got podcasts, clothes, all sorts of things. So, I think he's finding it really difficult to make a call. And, it's potentially a big week for Newcastle because they were, and as I said earlier, for Tessie New, they were hoping to get Tessie New. They made him an offer. They were hoping he would come to Newcastle and play in the centres for them next year. That didn't happen. He stayed in Brisbane where he'll play fullback for 2 more years. So it could be, obviously Connor would be a great bounce back from that for the Knights if they can convince him to stay. And if he goes, it's a pretty tough week for them.
Now, didn't the Knights sign Gagai?
They did, yeah.
And haven't they got Best?
Yes.
And haven't they got Kalen Ponga?
Correct.
So where were they going?
Ponga's playing 5'8" next year.
Were they going to bring New and put Kalen Ponga to 5'8"?
Well, I think, no, they were going to play Tessie as a centre. I think they're going to potentially play Gagai in the wing.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. And there's a young kid in the
system.
system.
Does he know that?
Well, I don't.
I don't think he looks played on the wing, does he?
There's a young kid in the. There's a young kid. The move of Kalen Ponga to 5'8" is in the mix. It will happen at some point, I think, because there's a kid up there. I think we've spoken about him before. Josh Hodgson's nephew, I think it's his nephew, Bailey Hodgson, young English kid who plays fullback and apparently is a gun and was killing it in New South Wales Cup before the comp was shut down. So at some point, I think they'll go down the Kalen Ponga to 6 path. Probably hinges on what Mitch Pearce does in the next year or two.
There'll be things for Connor Watson to do if he was to come back to the Roosters. I mean, wasn't he in Home and Away, or he did some acting or something?
He
before?
did, I think you're right. Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah,
he's a good-looking young rooster.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not a rooster.
Young knight at the moment.
Knight,
Oh, young rooster.
Like
Nice.
that, yeah.
All right. What about the Storm? What are they doing leading into these finals?
Yeah, look, it's really the Storm are obviously in a really enviable position at the moment. They can rest some players in coming weeks. Now, last year, I don't know if you remember, they rested a heap of players in the last round. It was against the Dragons, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'll go to. Excuse me.
The spicy chili rice.
That chili
Spicy chili rice. I can see it because your toupee was lifting up.
Don't snort.
Sorry. I don't think they'll go down that path again, but I think they'll certainly rest some players in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And we're talking there guys like, obviously, Jerome Hughes and Dale Finucane are going to miss some footy now with the head knocks. I think they'll rest some of their origin players. We'll have Christian Welch on the show soon. We can ask him because I can imagine, even though those guys have had some rests and over the second half of the year, I think they're looking again at resting the likes of Munster and perhaps Christian Welch, Jesse Bromwich, those sort of guys, the centres, Olam and Olam will probably get a rest. Remus Smith will probably get a rest. So, it's an interesting time for Melbourne because they're on the verge, you mentioned it earlier, they're on the verge of history. They're on the verge of becoming the most, what would you call it, the winningest side in premiership history. Yep. But I've spoken to them during the week and they said, look, the minor premiership doesn't matter. The record doesn't matter. No, the minor premiership doesn't matter. The record doesn't matter.
Well, no one get only to them, $100,000 for it.
No, to them, what matters to them is making sure their players are ready to go come the final. So if that's at the expense of the minor premiership, then they've said
they're happy to roll
so
that.
Be it. They obviously want to win it. But they
but Rudy, that's the anomaly with our game. That if you finish first, I think it's only $100,000 you get for being minor premiers. That should be $1 million.
Well, the other thing that doesn't matter this year,
you get the JJ Gilton and Shield, don't you? I think is that.
But the other thing that's intriguing about this year is there's no home ground advantage. All the finals are going to be on neutral venues. So whether you finish first, second, third, or fourth, it doesn't matter. So that's another reason that winning the minor premiership isn't of huge significance to them.
The Storm have now won 30 in a row in Queensland.
Yeah.
They'll be the only
Wow.
team that'll be disappointed if the grand final gets taken to Melbourne.
Yeah, that's true.
Not wrong.
Absolutely true. All right, and finally, the whole loan system. I understand the
Yeah.
Dragons are trying to loan 14, 15, 16 players.
Well,
Is
the
that right?
Dragons might get involved in it this week because they've obviously lost Andrew McCulloch now, so they're pretty short in the hooking position.
Yep.
So I'd imagine they'll go and dip into the loan basket this week and try and find themselves a number 9 from somewhere.
Right, okay.
I would say that young guy from the Tigers. Is it Simpkins?
Simpkin.
He's not getting a run.
Yeah, he's one.
And maybe the young guy from Newcastle as well.
Maybe Mitch Rain. They might get Mitch Rain
Get
back
him
for
back.
a
Oh, Mitch
comeback.
Rain.
What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Kevin Kingston.
Rudy, thanks so much.